So I wanted to start with a definition of what education is, because more or less everybody knows, but what the dictionary says is that it's the imparting and acquiring of knowledge through learning. But there's actually three types of different education. One of them is formal education, the other one's non-formal, and the other one is informal. And the differences between these is that formal education earns you certificates that are officially recognized. Non-formal education does not necessarily earn you certificates that are officially recognized. And informal education is a type of education that you get outside of school, usually because there is a need for you to fit in society. So it's more about your cultural differences that are developed through society. But education, as we know it, wasn't always as we have it today in mind. Actually, it wasn't until the early 1800s that education became publicly available even to the poorest, and it wasn't until the late 1800s that education became state-funded for primary schools, and a few years after that it was made compulsory for people up to the age of 10. And it wasn't until the beginning of the 1900s that we had secondary school systems, or lyceums, or high schools as we know them, and about the same time we had the first red brick universities. So back then, the first universities were only dealing with theoretical subjects, but red brick universities focused more on vocational subjects like engineering and social sciences, subjects that could educate and have skilled workers that were needed as part of the Industrial Revolution. But standardized, and the system as we know it today is actually falling into a framework developed by UNESCO, which is called the International Standard of Classification of Education. And as you can see from the top part of the graph, it pretty much defines how we learn from the day we're born up until become young adults and thereafter. So in the first few years of our life, up until the age of 5, we were mostly homeschooled, but that's where we develop communication skills that are necessary for us when we go to primary school, where the focus is mostly on language and numeracy skills, with a bit of science and a bit of history, but those are very minimal throughout the curriculum. And it's not until we get up to secondary school that this subject, science, becomes something different. It becomes biology as a separate subject. It becomes chemistry as a separate subject. And this furthering and deepening of knowledge happens up until you finish secondary school. And if you're lucky and privileged enough, you can go to university and earn higher education certificates, academic certificates, or professional certificates. And this is possible because the system has been standardized, but standardization comes at a cost. So there's problems with educations, and cost is one of them. It's actually pretty expensive to attend school, to buy textbooks, and to sit exams. And cost also creates a kind of, I would say, negative feedback loop, because those that are more privileged get access to better resources and better schooling system. So when we think about standardization, we often think it's a good thing, and it's a level playing field because everybody gets to sit the same exam. But as I've just said, not everybody gets the same schooling. So it's an uneven playing field. Teachers are doing a good job, but they don't have enough time to personalize lessons for each of the 30 or more students that might be responsible for it. So they don't have time, and time is actually a pretty big factor when you're learning things, and it affects education in adults as well. Most of us have 9-to-5 jobs, which makes it difficult to pick up new knowledge after work. And when you do have the time, it's actually quite difficult to find the right resources in order to learn. So we're at an impasse, and we need help in order to reform the educational system. If we don't do so, the future generation is doomed to not be able to catch up with technology, to not be able to pick up new professions. And that's where we think the AI can make a difference. But what I've just said has also been confirmed through an independent research that we carry out in the UK across 2,000 UK adults. 52% of them think, well, they don't think, they know they don't have enough time to pick up a new skill. 63% of them think it's very, very expensive to do so. 38% of them struggle to find good content and reliable content online. But the good news is that 1 in 2 knows that technology can help in this, and 1 in 4 turn to a friend to learn new knowledge because they know that a friend can teach them better. They can teach them the way they want to learn. And that is key, and that is where I actually think that AI can make a real difference, because we can use AI methods to deliver a personalized lesson the way you like to learn, and we can do so in a short and efficient amount of time. But to get there, you need to build a system such as this. And we've given a lot of thought into how this is done. And we think there's 3 important pillars that need to be followed in order to build such a system. One of them is the absorption pillar, a way to input information into a system. The other one is the delivery pillar, the way to deliver information that has been learned. But most importantly, the 3rd pillar is personalization. So when you deliver content, it needs to reach out to the person that you're talking to. It needs to be engaging, but each and every one of us gets engaged in a different way. So taking into account all those 3 pillars and putting them in sort of a feedback loop diagram that you can see behind me, once you get new knowledge, so content absorption into the system, you deliver it to someone. And the way you can personalize a lesson is by closing the feedback loop. You actually need to look and feel and understand if the person is receptive for this information. So you can use such methods to actually gauge a student's learning, and then next time round, refine the way you present information to them so they become even more receptive. Now, what looks like a simple diagram here is actually composed of at least, we believe, 30 independent software modules. There's a set of absorption modules, so you can either follow the diagram, but I'll talk through it. So you need methods that you can input knowledge into a system, whether it's directly from public websites or whether you're directly uploading information. But once that information is in the system, you need a way to analyze it. What subject is the lesson talking about? How difficult is it? Is it a lesson that I already have in the system, or is it something new? So, and if it's something new, where do I put it? Is it for a high school student? Is it for a primary school student? So what's the breadth and depth? Is it talking about a particular person? Do I need to find more information about that person before I construct the lesson? And once all that happens and you gather all the information, you can summarize it, convert it into a computational object, so I'm at the last box right now, and store it in a database. And only once it's part of that database can one reach and learn a new lesson. But the way we learn in school is by asking and engaging in conversation with a teacher and tutor. So we believe an AI system should have that conversational aspect. So when you're looking for new information, you need to speak to the system and say, well, I want to learn about history today. I want to learn about World War II. And once the system understands what it is that you're looking for, it goes into the database, it picks up the lesson that it has, it personalizes it for you. So if you're learning more with visual cues, it adds more visual cues. If you're more lexical, it adds more speech to it. And once it's personalized it delivers it to you. And again, the important part here is that it keeps engaged on it's engaged on the user. It understands whether the user is receptive to the information via sentiment and emotional analysis, feeds that information back into a user's profile, and then picks it up the next time round and says, have I done a good job in teaching the lesson beforehand, or do I need to change something? So to summarize, such a platform needs to have at least 4 things. It needs to find and learn new content on its own. It needs to teach any content, but it needs to do so in a personalized way. And to do so, it needs to be able to know whether you're receptive to such information. But above all, if it's going to make a change and an impact, it needs to be accessible by everyone, such as a website. So with that, I'll just present to you with a vision we have about such a platform, which we call Sophos.
The modern-day problem we are facing is that traditional teaching methods have not changed in decades. With the current rate of technological progress, our antiquated schooling system offers little chance of preparing students and learners for the future ahead. Inevitably, our future generations will always be left far behind from reaching their full potential. So how can we best prepare and educate our children for the changes ahead? Sophos is a learning platform driven by artificial intelligence. Sophos provides a future in which advanced interactive technology will allow any of us of all ages to have the ability to easily find answers, create products, or accomplish tasks by establishing a skill set according to a preferred method of teaching, which has been shaped and influenced by a learner's upbringing and background.
Hello. I am Sophos. I am an AI-driven learner, where AI methods are used to absorb content into my knowledge base. I am an AI-driven teacher, where AI methods are used to optimize content delivery in order to maximize your learning experience. I am an AI engagement detection machine. I use AI methods to gauge your responses in order to refine content in the best way that is suited to your method of learning. Let us further explore how I do this. To begin playing this Sophos lesson, please read the phrase below out loud.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog.
From taking a digital text document and classifying the content into a teaching subject, to converting a stream of audio input into a digital text representation that can subsequently be accessed and manipulated in a computer environment, I will be able to assess your understanding of the presented material we have just learned together. I am here to follow your progress and provide you with increasingly complex tasks, to help you to become a stronger, more independent thinker. But only you have the ability to unlock your full potential. I will personalize a lesson according to your preferred learning style, by adapting lesson material and monitoring your engagement. For example, if your preferred learning method is audio-visual, then your learning material will be presented in the form of sound and sight.
During a lesson, Sophos will recommend additional resources if you wish to further your knowledge on the current topic. Once the lesson is over, you'll be able to retrieve the extra reading materials that you'd previously added to your archives at any given time. All learning materials provided will be referenced with citations. You'll also be able to connect and have discussions with peers and mentors who have knowledge on the given lesson. We all deserve the right to education and to become strong, independent thinkers. Sophos is here to do just that. Together, we can activate your full potential. Get in touch with us and become part of the future of education.